So, are you watching Dynamite regularly then? Like,
yeah, actually.
That's very cool. Oh yeah, of course you get USA now, don't you? So it's pretty quite easy. What do you think then? I'm curious what you think of AEW Dynamite, because we watched. Remember, you watched the highlights, and then you jumped on the podcast for a little bit, didn't you? And we chatted about it after we met in Washington. Like, do you think do you still like it? Do you still enjoy it? Like, do you prefer?
Oh yeah.
I mean, dumb question really, but do you prefer watching it to Raw? Because fuck me. Raw's not bad. SmackDown, mate, don't waste your time. Seriously, SmackDown this week was pure misery in a can.
I fucking love current Dynamite. I mean, issues with what's going on be damned. They're still putting on a hell of a show.
Did you watch this week's with Michael Nakazawa? Because I imagine,
yes.
I don't like Michael Nakazawa, but I imagine he's the kind of wrestler that you would like, because he's got that kind of hilarious Japanese anime kind of style of wrestling, DDT and all that nonsense.
I love the Panty Patrol. I can't forget what they're actually called over there. What was Tozawa's and Nakazawa's and Nakazawa's and Omega's name over there? I forget.
They mentioned it, didn't they, on the recent broadcast?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, because Chris Jericho, by the way, on comms last week was the most hilarious thing ever. When he started having a go at Cody's mum and he said he was going to offer her out, I fucking started pissing my pants laughing. And he was just, that was so funny to me. He was just like, she was like, oh, she slapped me once. Bitch, I'm going to fucking knock her out. It's like, and then Tony Schiavone's like, you can't just offer out Cody's mum. He's like, I can do what I want. Shut up, Schiavone. It's fucking brilliant. Skiavone.
Honestly, those two on commentary is probably the best I've heard in quite some time.
Yeah, I think once Jericho starts winding down, being a sort of regular wrestler, I would much rather see him move to commentary than just head behind the scenes. I think he's got way too much to offer, and
he's got too much charisma to just sit in the back.
Also, JR's kind of like, I like JR, but I do feel like we've had the best of JR now. Like, I feel like that he's just kind of there as a name more so than because he's, really, really good. Like, he's still good, but he's not nearly on the level he was in, say, like 2000. So for me, I'm thinking, yeah, sort of dial him back a bit. Maybe only have him for the pay-per-views so he could sell those big moments. Then have like Jericho on comms with Excalibur. I could just imagine Jericho rinsing Excalibur for not showing his face every week. It would just be so funny.
Yeah, no, that's what I want to see. Is Excalibur is a great foil for any heel, but we need to put a heel there that is actually worth a shit.
Yeah, because Excalibur's more of a play-by-play guy. I enjoy Excalibur as well. I think he's legitimately the most underrated play-by-play.
Right, but that's because I can't think of any time.
But it's all in-house,
Right. But I can't think of any time where we've had a decent heel to foil him against.
Not in AEW, no. Like, Chris Jericho's the best, but Chris Jericho's really only worked on comms as either a guest for the Inner Circle or last week when he was actually doing comms. So, like, he needs to do comms every single week. Because I opted to watch Dynamite instead of NXT last week, even though NXT had a better card. And NXT beat them in the ratings literally by the tightest margin, which, of course, all the WWE apologists were wetting their pants about. But to be honest, I don't regret watching Dynamite instead because the commentary made it just so much more entertaining. I like Mauro Ranallo and Nigel McGuinness and Beth Phoenix. I think they're fucking great, but I also don't really care, if I'm being honest, like what they have to say as much as I do someone like Jericho. I know Jericho's going to make me piss my pants laughing at least 4 times a night. I can't say the same about anyone else on that commentary. I don't really like Nigel from a humour perspective and an entertainment perspective.
I mean, that's fair. I will say on the flip side, just imagine Nigel McGuinness and Chris Jericho in the same spot.
I know, that'd be fucking awesome. Because also you'd have the British humour, because, you've got that kind of dry British wit that comes with everything. Like, I think Nigel McGuinness is wickedly underrated. I mean, he always has been, like, even as a wrestler. I thought he was massively underrated, but yeah, man, I can't get me enough of AEW. It feels so different from everything else. Everyone's whinging about it, saying it's like seriously, I go on our Twitter feed and some of the shit you read, it's just a fucking knockoff WCW. It's on TNT. It's like, dude, like they make millions, and TNT, they have like 1 million people watching them, whereas you're on Twitter and 20 people vaguely give a shit what you think. Shut the fuck up and get back in your mum's basement, you cunt.
And also on top of that, great, you think it's a knockoff WCW. Nah, it's doing some of the stuff that WCW is doing, but you know what? It's doing it better because it's self-aware of the issues that WCW had.
But that's what pisses me off, right? So you can tell that these are people who've gone on a network and watched Monday Night Wars, which is great, it's very entertaining, but you can also tell that they're the kind of people who have gone, oh yeah, you know, WWE told me that WCW went out of business because it was always shit. And it's like, well, no, actually, for a couple of years, it was so much better. Hello. Just walked into a lady with pink hair. I'm always topping up with body armor when I'm playing GTA. It's one of those things. Yeah, no, like, it just winds me up because people were like, oh, WCW was crap. It was always crap. It's like, no, yeah, don't get me wrong, 2000, 2001 were terrible. But for a long time, WCW was so much better than WWF. And everyone's forgotten that. And what AEW is doing is taking the good bits of WCW and making sure that they, you know, re-immerse themselves in that. The biggest problem, I would say, with AEW, though, is that they are not really interested in picking up casual fans, and you really get, like, they've got their 1 million viewers, they're happy with that. TNT are obviously thrilled that 1 million people are tuning in, so it does feel a little bit like it's like, oh, you know, we'll just look after the heavy smarks and people like me and you who, you know, will pop our tits off for all the little references that someone like a Chris Jericho might make.
Right. And honestly, you know what? It's kind of the reason NXT is still so hot and so popular is because neither of them try for the casual fans. They don't need to. They really don't need to. As long as there is a Raw and a SmackDown to try and get, you know, Joe everybody.
Do you not feel like casual fans are a myth as well? I really feel that way. I think that's just a myth. You know how they always say, oh, we're trying to get the casual fans? That doesn't, like, if you watch, like, Raw or SmackDown, or, like, what do they say? Like, WrestleMania is the only time, and maybe SummerSlam, where you're going to get a fair amount of casual fans. Other than that, they don't really exist. I think that's just a load of bollocks. If you look at the ratings and stuff, they never spike that much. When people say, like, yeah, Austin coming back spiked, but that doesn't bring back casual fans. That brings back nostalgic fans. That's totally different. Like, you know, people who are a bit older, like me, for instance, I'm an old man, so I'm like, ooh, Stone Cold's on Raw this week, so I'll watch it, because, you know, I love Stone Cold when I was young. But I just think people just, do you know what the problem with wrestling is? People take it way too seriously now. And I know that's rich because, you know, we started that, you know, sodding podcast and everything.
Oh my goodness.
Like, but ultimately we're doing it because we want to entertain people, not because we legitimately think that wrestling is life and it's all we have. Like, that would hurt so many people. Like, if we just went on the podcast and said to them, yeah, do you know what? Like, we love wrestling, but it's not the be-all and end-all, because it actually isn't for most people. Only that really hardcore subset of fans who live in their basement, and that's fine. Do you want to live in your mum's basement? No, I always feel really awkward saying that, because Carl Wilkinson lives in his mum's basement, so, you know, I feel bad for Carl, bless him. But that's through choice, I'm sure.
But to be fair, not everybody that lives in their mother's basement is a, we're going to use the Japanese term, neat trash.
Neat trash.
NEET. Japanese term.
What does that mean?
It's an acronym that I can never remember of. Long story short, it's basically your standard neckbeard, unwashed masses. You get the idea.
Yeah, you don't. Do you know what? When I started wrestling and when I started watching wrestling and covering wrestling in this podcast, I didn't want to admit that was a thing. And then you go to wrestling shows and like 90% of the people around you are those people. You know, no job, no output, no, you know, haven't got their own property, no bills, no real responsibilities. I don't want to be that guy who just shits on wrestling fans, because I love wrestling fans. I've met so many amazing people, but there are this like really heavy percentage of people who are just so fucking socially inept. Like I saw, do you know about Camille, the incredible powerhouse that's in NWA, the woman who goes out with Bram, aka Thomas Latimer? Like, she tweeted out the other day, like, on her Twitter, if you've got a wrestler's number, that doesn't mean that, you know, because apparently people are finding wrestlers' numbers. And basically she sort of said, like, you know, don't be a fucking creep. Don't be that person who gets a wrestler's number and then spams them and you just think that's those kind of people. They get that number and then they think, ooh, I'll fucking, you know, Camille's hot, I'm going to message her. Like, that's just fucking weird. And that's the problem, is that people think that most wrestling fans are like that. And there is actually quite a large amount of wrestling fans who are like that. And that's the big problem. People want to act like, oh, it's only one or two. No, it's a big subset. It's a big subgenre of fruitcakes out there who just want to spoil it for the rest of us. And that's what fucking winds me up.
Right. And it's sad because, quite honestly, there's as big of a subset of again, I'm going to use the word neat just because I don't have a better option, as even though that's a very high number of people, there's about as many of them that are just wonderful human beings. And it's always levels of gray, too. Even if they're, you know, as you said, no bills, no responsibilities and whatnot, they can still be lovely people.
Neckbeards. Have you ever had a neckbeard? Because you're not much of a facial hair man, are you?
Not if I can help it. It's only because I haven't trimmed for the week. So
everyone's just letting themselves go in the pandemic. I've always felt that you look. I know I've said this before. You look like is it James Hetfield or James Hepburn? I forgot his name. The guy who's the lead singer in Metallica. You look like a miniature version of him.
A lot of people say that, and I get it.
Baby James.
But I don't get it.
Baby James. It's because the beard and the same colour hair and stuff. It's not because you necessarily look that much like him from an actual physical standpoint. It's because you've got a lot of the same kind of characteristics and traits that he has. No, if you could sing like him, money. Absolute fucking money.
Yeah, maybe. Might be something.
We could just do a trivium and rip him off. Just saying. Gilbert Trivium, the Gilbert of Metallica rock. I really want to message all the guys from Trivium now and call them Gilbert. Mate, I fucking miss Gilbert. Gilbert was the man.
Speaking on, small news if you haven't actually reported it yet, Gilbert had his retirement match against a piece of trash.
Against a piece of trash. Oh, I bet it was James Ellsworth, wasn't it?
It was fucking James motherfucking Ellsworth.
They look the same, don't they? They cut from the same cloth, and that being that cloth was clearly wiped against the remaining excrement of some one-night stand in Kentucky in the 70s. Put it mildly.
Putting it mildly, indeed.
Do you remember on the podcast where me and Steve had like this segment where we would come up with different things to relate James Ellsworth to, and Steve would like not hold back either. It wouldn't be like, you know, just kind of like, oh, he's a bit of trash. He'd be like, James Ellsworth is the remaining cum from the jism of a fucking, he'd say these horrible things. It's like, yeah, I'm all good for it. I'll sign off on that. I can't be bothered to edit.
But why? Why bother? Because it's true.
It's factual. It is factual. I can't. So I'm gonna. Right, I've got a nice. Do you remember? I can't name names because I'll get fucking in trouble. But do you remember we had a fun fan that used to listen to the podcast from Florida? A young lady. Yeah. So I have it on good authority that a certain Mr. Ellsworth, allegedly, of course, sent her some Snapchats, basically trying to, like, you know, chat to her in a nefarious manner. And apparently he does this with a lot of people. So, yeah. Wow. James Ellsworth is basically a dirty little, you know, online manipulator. Allegedly, of course. You know. Allegedly. We have no factual basis to prove this, although I have seen the pictures. Should have kept them, actually, now that I think about it.
Oh, why didn't you keep those?
So I'm no idea. I should have kept them in a folder. I do have a folder with nefarious nonsense. Should anyone decide to piss me off too much, with a lot of information in there. I'm just going to say that, but that's another time for another day. I was just thinking actually the other day, like, because our Facebook's been taken down because, you know, Facebook are cunts. And I went on this article online. They said, oh, if you go on a certain part of your Facebook, you can download your entire public information record from it. So I downloaded it the other day, and it is just the amount of information. I thought, fuck it, I'll have a go, I'll have a look. The amount of information I have in you is terrifying.
Yeah, no, it literally tracks everything, and it's It's both terrifying and kind of humbling because they can boil you down to basically nothing.
Yeah, it just scared the shit out of me that do you know what? Something I didn't realize when I started doing a podcast is how much of a data trail you leave, like a carbon footprint online, so to speak. It just amazes me. So I'm so careful about. You have to be so careful about how you talk to people, how you message people, because God forbid people get it misconstrued all the time. You could have the most innocent fucking things in mind, but because of the way online is, people will try and spin it into something, and you think, Jesus Christ, So yeah, I was just a little bit gobsmacked when I opened up my Facebook. I was like, wow, you have all of this, and it's not like I post anything particularly sensitive on Facebook either. I've never been big on Facebook. I think it's a bit trashy, to be honest, but basically I'm just still pissed off that Facebook shut down our fucking page. Well, they've unpublished it and I've appealed it, but they apparently do this with people all over the place. They take down all kinds of pages all the time. Doesn't matter. There was one person who had 800,000 followers on their Facebook page. Facebook just took it down because they didn't like a photo because one person reported it. They'll find any excuse, and these fucking dirty cunts are on fucking social media all the time, not removing neo-Nazi publicized groups because their content doesn't offend any of our policies, really, but a picture of fucking Bill Goldberg does. Shut the fuck up. Fucking
really? It's because it's a picture of Bill Goldberg was the reason.
So the thing that we've always got quite a few DCMAs, which is fine, but it's not like we sort of just gone fuck you and carried on with them. We've always, they've got an automated deletion system, right? So if you post something and it's copyright effective, they either block it or they mute it, depending on the, the content of it. And so we've never really been hit with anything particularly bad. They just said, well, you can't monetize your page because you post a lot of stuff that's from other people. It's that's fine. So where possible, we try and just put a YouTube link up instead, because that way it's not, we're not using it directly and stuff. But they just decided, fuck it, we're going to hit you hard over a couple of AEW videos, which I thought was a bit bullshit because, well, AEW normally is pretty chill about that sort of stuff, but they've started getting involved with that stuff now, which is a bit frustrating because, I was hoping they'd be a beacon of hope. Because when you think about it, if you share anything from a wrestling company, you're doing them a favour first and foremost, because it's bringing eyes to their product. People can say, oh, you're using their product to garner, more interest in your page, but come on. WWE's got what?
It swings
a billion
ways.
Social media followers. Yeah, it does. I think as long as you're clearly not abusing that for the benefit of self-gain. For instance, you've probably seen on our Twitter, every day I try and put a couple of things from history, on this day in wrestling. Who does that really benefit? Does it benefit us? We might get 1 or 2 followers here and there trickle down the train. But ultimately, people are going to look at that and think, oh, cool, and have a little moment, I remember that from WWF. It gets people talking, it gets people interested in your product. If anything, those people might watch that and think, oh, cool, I'm going to go to the network and watch that because I remember that was so cool. If I put on this day in 1997, Bret Hart faced Stone Cold, they're not going to then immediately think, oh, cool, I'm going to follow the Wrestle plug because they're big fans of Bret and Austin. No, they're probably going to go to the network and watch that match. Or they're probably just going to share that, and all of a sudden it's going to get more people, more eyes on your product. So copyright, the ironic thing about copyright is by doing this and ramping it up more, I genuinely think that they are just making it more and more difficult. What they want is for everybody to engage only with their social media. And the problem is that places like Facebook, who are just neo-Nazi loving cunts, are quite happy to pocket money from the various companies like that and turn a blind eye to genuine creators. And even YouTube, which is far better than a lot of the other social media places, is still becoming a bit of a fucking cesspool. You can't make money, they limit monetization of wrestling because it goes against ethical. And you just think all they're trying to do is stranglehold people who are creative. And it's really sad because last time I checked, the internet was about the freedom and exchange of information and movement, and that's slowly not becoming a thing. But we're having all of our rights taken away. And people, when you say this, people think, oh, he's just being a conspiracy theorist. He's got his tinfoil hat on. No, people are taking your rights away. People, that's all right if you're a boring piece of shit and you don't do anything with your life. But ultimately, they are taking away our rights. And people don't want to fucking acknowledge that. And it really upsets me.
So, something that's big over here that a lot of people kind of turned a blind eye to, which is stunning in of its own right, is we over here had a I'm trying to remember the terming. We had a referendum, a bill. Basically, it's the darn it. Long story short, it was basically the freedom of internet. I'm trying to think of what the actual term is.
Freedom of the Second Amendment, freedom of expression, right of passage, and freedom of movement and information and knowledge and technology.
Net neutrality. That's what I'm looking for.
Oh yeah, I get updates about that via email.
Yeah, net neutrality because of the FCC currently sits as a fuck the FCC.
That's all I think about when I hear FCC.
I fucking hate the FCC.
Who's basically the FCC is your version of Ofcom, isn't it? Over here we have Ofcom, and the idea is that they try and censor as much of what they consider to be unnecessary material. So they'll come at you if you put like too much nudity on your programming and things like that. But I'm willing to bet that if you pay them enough money, then they don't even fucking recognise that you're alive.
Yeah, basically.
Cunts. Fucking cunts. The world's full of these people now. These fucking companies and these, like the amount of times, right, I'd post something on Facebook completely innocuous and somebody would like send me a message like a DCMA or something saying, oh, this is the property of someone else. That's fine. I don't mind it being the property of someone else. Why is it so bad that I share other people's property and garner more fucking traffic, which will ultimately lend itself towards them? Do you know what? I reckon that dickhead Lars Ulrich caused this when he had that Napster shit. That's what triggered all this.
Yeah, basically.
Fuck you, Lars. Do you know what? I much prefer Lars Sullivan to Lars Ulrich. I'm just saying. Also, you're a shit drummer. You're massively overrated, mate. You're not Joey Jordison. Go fuck yourself.
You're not even Ringo Starr.
Yeah, Ringo Starr wasn't even the best drummer in the Beatles, so that tells you everything you need to know. Are you a fan of the Beatles? I've never really asked.
I'm actually a huge fan of the Beatles.
It always upsets people, but I'm not a huge fan. I think they're a bit overrated.
And that's fine. That's completely and utterly fine. I much
prefer the Stones because I liked a lot of the political stuff they did, but I don't know. Like, I like Rage Against the Machine. Everyone thinks they're trash, so whatever. It's like Coldplay, right? Coldplay make really good music. But for some reason, everyone has a little fucking pissy whinge about it. And I'm like, who cares? Like,
but why?
Like, they make good music. And it's not like you have to listen to it. It's not like Chris Bite charges into your front room. Let me tell you something about my pop, brother. Like, he's not Hulk Hogan trying to force coke up your nostrils. Like, he just walks in and, he does concerts. And people who like Coldplay can go and watch them. And people who don't like them, they don't have to watch them. So
they can fuck off. Yeah.
This is the problem with the modern day, is that people can't just enjoy what they enjoy. They've got to shit on what everyone else enjoys. Like, that's fine. Like, this is what cracks me up about wrestling is the worst for that, though, because people someone will say, I really like Bret Hart, but then there'll be like 10 cunts on the internet who have got nothing better to do because they literally have no lives, and they'll be like, Bret Hart's fucking shit, man. And it's like, great, you think that. That's cool. Your opinion is like everyone else's opinion. It's an arsehole. We've all got one, and some are shitter than others.
And by the way, if you don't
wipe your opinions.
And to be fair, if you don't actually like Bret Hart, what is actually wrong with you?
I mean, I could understand like people who only like, the big characters with the big promos, but I actually thought Bret was really good on the mic, especially when he turned heel. The problem is that subtlety only really works for intelligent people. I know that's going to sound really obnoxious, but it's true. Have you noticed how people who don't get... Like, remember Bray Wyatt when he first came out? He was so good, and his promos were so fascinating, but people didn't get it because they ultimately weren't intelligent enough to understand it. And that offends people. And that's not me saying, oh, I'm better than people because I understood it. Not at all. It's because I actually took the time and effort to understand what I was... Like, if you love it that much, why wouldn't you take the time to take an interest? For instance, you're a big fan of The Rock or Mick Foley or whoever it may be. If that guy releases an autobiography, you're going to want to read it so that you can learn more about him and understand that person more, understand and empathize with them on a more personal level. So why wouldn't you do the same with your wrestlers while they're working? Why wouldn't you take the time to think, oh, Bray Wyatt, like, for instance, do you think the Firefly Funhouse is going to be nearly as entertaining if it doesn't have all those hysterical references to Vince and everything else? Like, there's a bit where he goes, "It's such good shit," and you think, that's clearly a pop at, John Moxley, aka Dean Ambrose, on Chris Jericho's podcast. And that's funny and that's amusing. Like Brody Lee, his promos, they don't work as well if nobody understands the fact that he's clearly taken a shot at Vince McMahon. Like, we put that promo on a YouTube video, and the amount of comments I got from people saying, "How is this a shot at Vince McMahon? You don't fucking know what you're talking about," because they're so far up Vince McMahon's arse. They're like, nope. No, absolutely not. Nobody takes the piss. Vince McMahon is amazing. Brody Lee doesn't say. He was referencing COVID. I was like, yeah, that's exactly what he was doing. The idea is that he's using that as a shroud to then fucking comprehend and make fun of Vince McMahon. It's so well known. The story goes that he doesn't like sneezing, that he finds yawning a weakness. Like everybody says, it's even been confirmed by his own daughter in an interview. So, of course, he's taken a cheap shot, but wrestling fans want to... Hey, let's get out of this party. Get out of this GTA lobby, you piece of shit. I'm gonna fuck it. He's gonna puke. By the way, it was Darren Drozdo's birthday the other day. Remember Droz? What a sad experience that was.
Yeah.
He had so much potential, and then D'Lo Brown, boom, powerbomb, paralyzed for the rest of your life. That's really tragic. If anything ever told you a lesson about wrestling, that is it right there. Fuck me, I made this pie depressing quick. Let's talk about paraplegics.
Yeah. So, getting back on the topic of what I actually think about AEW. Because I haven't completely gotten it yet. I don't know. I understand that what they're doing is literally the best recipe for what made WCW good, plus what makes current modern day wrestling good, i.e. the bumps, the performers. I'd say the current batch of performers is, I hate to say it, better than what WCW had to work with. It could be the fact that they may or may not have more freedom to actually work and actually play around with their spots, but I think for my money, I prefer AEW in its current state than I did as WCW as a kid.
Do you know what? I think you just hit the nail on the head. What's more exciting, right, when you're watching wrestling than knowing that the wrestlers are having fun and having a good time? It's the same with anything else. Like, for instance, I love the Denver Broncos, as you know. Like, I love American football. When you see American footballers having a good time, genuinely enjoying what they're doing, like Von Miller will make a sack and he'll do this big old sack dance thing. And I think, awesome. That makes me even happier because not only am I enjoying something that I love very much, but I'm also watching guys who also enjoy being those entertainers and doing the same things that I love, and that just adds to the enjoyment of it. And you can I'm sorry, I know it sounds really cliche, but WWE guys, you could tell that not all of them, some of them clearly love it, but you can just tell that they're going through the motions, and that's half the problem with wrestling. Exactly. EC3 is a fine example. You can tell there's somebody who's miserable, who's just completely locked down. It's a shame because all of his friends work at WWE now. Like Rockstar Spud, and he gets on over Braun Strowman. You just think, it's such a fucking shame that he's hamstrung like that. But WWE is a place you go to make money. AEW is a place you go to make art, to make wrestling, to make a production. I truly believe that, and that's fine. WWE is always going to have the biggest audience and the most money, but that's because of the money aspect. If you're going to WWE because you can't tell me that someone like a Ricochet or I don't know, fuck's sake, I've got to do a nightclub mission for popularity. You have to help me out with this bastard. Still, it's something different to do. Go. English Dave's giving me a phone call. Not English me, English Dave. You can't tell me that all those WWE guys, the lower end ones, like the Ricochets and Cedric Alexanders of the world, they have gone there for financial security. You can't tell me they've gone there because they know they'll have the best opportunity to be creative and to be the best artist, because they absolutely will not. It's the equivalent of a painter being told, an independent artist being told that when he goes to a certain company, he's only allowed to draw and paint a certain way. And sure, he'll make more money doing that, but he's not allowed to creatively, he's not got creative freedom. Exactly. Expression is everything. When you die, Nobody's going to give a shit about how much money you made. They're going to talk about your legacy. Nobody has said, oh, Kobe Bryant, what a shame he passed away because he made so much money. No, they're talking about the legacy he left on the game, the way he changed the way that they played basketball, the fact that he wanted to completely emulate and surpass what Michael Jordan did, that he wanted to be this larger-than-life character. Everyone talks about the legacy he left. Nobody gives two shits about the amount of money you make. And wrestling's the same. Don't get me wrong, everyone needs money to have a good time, and that's absolutely fine. I've got no problem with that. But to sit there and actually say that that's the be-all and end-all, and, you know, that's the problem with WWE fans. They think, oh, well, so-and-so's making the most money, therefore it's the best product. No, not at all. Money and viewers does not correlate into quality. What it does is it correlates into quantity and more money coming in. That doesn't correlate to quality. It never does. And that's why people enjoy AEW. And ultimately, if that was the case, then AEW wouldn't, for the most part, get more viewers than NXT every week. Because other than a couple of weeks, it's pretty much pissed all over NXT in the ratings.
Right.
That's facts are facts. Deal with the numbers never lie.
Right. And it's just a simple matter of they're putting on a far better product. Money be darned. I mean, Tony Khan's got some deep pockets, so, you know, there's still money to be thrown around, but...
Yeah,
Beast? Oh,
yeah, I'm still there, mate. I just... Yeah, no, the missus is showing me a chocolate frog.
Oh, but... All right.
Fun. Huh?
Fair enough.
Yeah, we went to Harry Potter World for her birthday. She had a great time.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I imagine your missus would love to do that. I know she loves Harry Potter.
Loves Harry Potter.
But yeah, no, nothing was, okay, it's easy for me to say because I'm not, you know, I'm an independent artist and I don't make any money right now because of the pandemic, and so I'm basically fucked. And, you know, I'd love it if people bought our t-shirt. Like I always said to you, didn't I? If every single one of our followers bought a t-shirt, I don't think I'd ever have to worry about, you know, being so financially fucked all the time. But yeah, exactly. But that's the same with everybody, you know? And I refuse to be that guy who uses our podcast for monetization. My podcast is about freedom of expression and creativity, and that's why I started doing a YouTube channel as well, because that found another outlet to it. So when Facebook basically said, no, fuck you, we don't like the fact that you're trying to build your own community, right, I just thought, well, go fuck yourself then. Like, I could easily just start another Facebook page, but there's nothing stopping him doing that again. And if I do that, what I'm basically saying is, yeah, I'm a complete whore for the process, and I'm okay with them taking away all of my fucking rights, which is basically what they're doing. So, you know, long story short, go fuck yourself, Mark Zuckerberg, you cunt. He's such a greasy little shitbag anyway. I hate him. He's a fucking arsehole.
Honestly, if that's what you want, I'd probably say start a Discord.
Well, that's what we've done. We've opened up that Discord. I was going to actually ask if you want to be an admin for it, because I'm not really clued into Discord very much, but Carl and fucking you, I imagine, will lose their minds.
You asked the right person. I can definitely help you out.
Wait for the friends to enter the helicopter. Okay, I've got to pick up these people. Get in the fucking helicopter. But yeah, if you want to jump on the Discord, mate, and get involved, it'd be lovely to have you back on. And, you know, like I say, it would be nice to sort of have you still taking advantage of the podcast to a certain extent, because, you know, you were the original co-host.
As much as Steve Neal wants to, you know, make sure that I never exist again.
He loves you, really. I think Steve's the premium co-host. Like, Steve will always be sort of like the premium, like, you know, the guy who's put in the most work of any of the co-hosts. But there's no denying the original and the number one, and you can always have that, which is very cool. So whenever someone talks online, you can be like, yeah, that's great, but you'll never be the first, will you, bitch? Which is obviously so important. So plus Dexter is no longer the Dexter of the podcast. Jay Miller is now. Have you heard our recent podcast? Like, Jeremy Miller just gets all the abuse because he's an absolute scrub. I love him. I love him dearly, but he's a complete and utter bitch. So he's our bitch now. He's the one who gets his coffee. He's our tea boy.
So I've been moved from the being the bitch to being the sort of Gilbert. It's, oh, hey, you were the joke. It's actually kind of nice when you're around now.
You're the honky tonk man. You come back to make the odd appearance and everyone pops for you, even though they've don't remember that you weren't that great in the first place. Hi-oh.
Yeah, basically. Oh, jeez.
Boom! You got savage there, bruv. I like, you know, it's one of those things. To be honest, like, there is this kind of mentality of, yeah, probably the more of a rinse you get on the podcast, the more probably popular you are to us. Because Nick Payne gets annihilated, and he's one of my best mates, and he's a complete and utter bitch. But that's more because he wants to stick, you know, Triple H's sledgehammer up his bumhole.
Sledgehammer or shovel? Because quite honestly, let's be honest, Nick Payne would probably get buried.
Yeah, he would, but I think that's what he wants. He wants Triple H to bury him, if you know what I mean. Bury him deep. Hi-oh! It's just got this unnatural love for Triple H, which I just have to laugh at. I just think, Christ on a bike. Do you not miss the podcast? Do you not? So I'm very curious, actually, because I never really get a chance. I never get to speak to you. I never get to speak to you anymore. Like, do you not miss it? Do you not think, oh, it was nice to be able to have something to do every week? Because there was a point where I thought you were getting quite good at it, but it was very evident your mental health was taking a battering on it, and it was just too much for you, which is why I made an executive decision. Because as far as I was concerned, as harsh as it might have seemed, your mental health for me was far more important than you continuing to hurt yourself just for the sake of trying to entertain a little bit. Like, I felt like you almost... I got the impression from you that you felt that you had to be loyal to us and the podcast. And I thought, no, you have to be loyal to yourself and your mental health, mate. That is the most important thing. And when I saw you like just clearly slipping from a mental standpoint, I was like, yeah, no, that's not good. Because if I was getting that way, and I have done in the past, I would want somebody to pull me aside and say, yeah, no, you need to take a back seat because you're just murdering yourself at this point.
I mean, I won't lie. I'm a bit two minds on it. One, I do absolutely miss being able to create the content with you week after week. The real slog of the whole 9 yards was having to sit down and find the time in my schedule to actually watch all the shows and then find a time to schedule with you to put on the podcast. It was just a lot. It was a lot for me, especially trying to balance 2 jobs and a social life and all the nonprofits that I do. It was a lot, but I do miss it.
Tell you what was a lot for me, because when we first started, we used to cover everything, didn't we? So we covered Raw, SmackDown, 205 Live, and NXT, and like it was just the slog of having to watch it all because we didn't really know what we were doing, so we would watch it all in full. And then I realised, like, Steve was very good for that, because Steve was like, why don't you just watch the highlights on YouTube? And I was like, that's a good idea. Fuck watching 3 hours of Raw. And then we tried to slimline it. And then, yeah, like, by that point, I think you were just burnt out and knackered. And we knew that it was pretty much game over for you at that point. But that's the case with a lot of people who come on. You know, Nick was on for quite a while, but things change. He's got 2 kids to look after. You know, Steve's now a dad. That's why he's not on at the moment. So, yeah, just... there isn't, like, you know, I've always been aware that I'm very lucky. I'm a bit of a fucking layabout. I don't have to worry about anything. I've got a wonderful partner, and other than that, I don't really have anything to worry about. I don't have kids to worry about, or, you know, obviously I've got a house and rent to pay and stuff like that, but yeah, I don't really have to worry about anything else. So I've got plenty of time to do a podcast. A lot of people don't, whether that be because of their work or whatever. So, you know, I don't want anyone to ever think, just because I had to get rid of them or because they couldn't be on the podcast anymore, that I have any grudges or harbour any, you know, bitterness towards them. Actually, I don't know if you can place those posters, but I think you can. So if
working on
it as a pairing, it should be much quicker. But yeah, I don't harbour like any grudges towards anyone, especially yourself. Like, I'm so grateful for the fact that, you know, let's be honest, people don't realise that if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have done the podcast anyway, because I don't think I would have had the necessary passion to get started without somebody else there to kind of act as a foil and add a bit of colour commentary or whatever it may be. I would have just been like, oh yeah, well, you know, I'll see how things go, you know. I might come back to it or whatever. But I know I know I would have been like, okay, well, you know, maybe I'll do it a little bit later.
Maybe a little bit later. Maybe, trust me, I get that, because I've had lots of projects just sit by the wayside because of that. And quite honestly, it's a lot easier when you've got 2 people, you know, working at it together.
Yeah, it's just something about, like, now I can do it and I don't mind doing it. I quite like the lone style quite a lot, because I don't know if you listen to me do it on my own, but I basically sound, everyone says that I've basically become Jim Cornette and doing the Jim Cornette style, which is where I just sit there and get angry, which works for me. But
I mean,
I enjoy it, but at the same time, you know, the dynamic of having other people on is always great. It is always good fun. So the only problem is that Skype is utter shit when it comes to recording more than two people, because it kind of, the quality drops out, and then if someone talks over the other person, then all of a sudden it can't get it, which is why I've always used the Xbox now, because it just works better in that regard.
Right. Which is hilarious, considering this is not its intended purpose, ever.
No, I don't think anyone has ever watched. No one has ever sort of gone on the Xbox and thought, I could make a podcast here. YouTube, yes. Podcast, no. Especially not audio-based. But
yeah.
I would like to do video, but we're not exactly, you know, video-orientated lads, are we? Let's be honest, we're not the kind of guys who sit in front of a camera and act like news reporters.
I mean, that would honestly make the podcast a little bit more dull, I think, to be completely honest with you.
I think so. I think with audio as well, you have the ability to get away with more and do more, because you haven't got to worry about how people are going to react to your facial expressions. Like, you can pretty much garner anything from a tone of voice. You don't need to see somebody's face to be entertained. That's how I always feel. So I really like the idea that at any point somebody could be walking around listening to us. You know, like when I was a postman, I was a postman for like 17 fucking years. And for the better part of that, I would always have my headphones in pretty much every day. And if it wasn't music, I was listening to podcasts. I've been listening to podcasts pretty much my entire adult life since they were a thing. And I remember just walking around listening to them, and the comfort and the joy I get from it. It felt like somebody was with me. It felt like somebody was alongside me, chatting with me. And that's why I wanted to do it. There are two reasons why I wanted to start this podcast. One was because, like I said to you on countless times, I'm not going to name them, but I used to listen to a different wrestling podcast, and I just got fed up with them just being so cunty and not allowing people the time of day. They'd like have call-ins, and people would call in, and they'd just basically take the piss out of them. And I just thought, well, what's the fucking point in that? Like, let people have their opinions. Like, if you're a real human being, then you'll have no problem interacting with people and allowing them a platform too. You know, when you've got an extended platform like a podcast, you should try as hard as you can to share it with other people, I think, not just keep it to yourself. So that was the main reason. And obviously, I love the idea of entertaining people during their lives. I love the idea of in some way giving back something to people. Now, I've never gone on the podcast and said, oh, please give me money because I struggle, because, yeah, I do struggle financially, but that's got nothing to do with the podcast. Like, I've chosen to be an independent artist. I've chosen to, you know, pursue this and hope that it may one day blossom into a career. And if it doesn't, well, boo-hoo. At least I gave it a bloody good shot and created a shit ton of content over the years. But for me, like, the idea of, like, you know, Dexter can put his headphones in and listen to me and Steve say, fucking Triple H loves to lube up sledgehammers and shove them up Booker T's bum or whatever. And everyone's like, oh, that's disgusting. You're being offensive. It's like, actually, we're just being entertaining. Most of what we say has a certain level of truth to it. We just ramp up the volume, which is no different from watching wrestling. You know, who do you love most?
Welcome to wrestling. What's the number one thing about character creation? Take your own personality first and then crank it to 11. Yes? Yes.
Exactly. Work for The Rock, work for Austin, Shawn Michaels, everybody. It works for all the greats, and we're exactly the same in that regard. I'll take the middle one of the three. You go for the left.
Working on it.
Yeah, I just kind of feel that, like, I just enjoy entertaining people, even if it's by being a complete and utter cunt. I'm okay with that. I'm totally okay with that. Like, if one person tweets me and says, oh, I listened to your podcast, you were fucking hilarious ranting about so-and-so, I'm like, great, that brought a little bit of happiness and a smile to somebody. That's so much more important to me than, oh, you know, I sold 20 t-shirts this month. Who gives a shit? What's that? That's not going to mean anything in the long term. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to sell 20 t-shirts a month. I'd love to sell 2,000 t-shirts a month. But the most important thing to me is that I'm able to express myself creatively and have my own identity through this podcast.
Right.
And it all comes back to that Facebook thing, because I feel, I don't care that our Facebook page has been taken down. I care that somebody has tried to restrict my ability to create and restrict my ability to entertain, because that's what I'm doing here. As an independent artist, I am able to wake up every day and create my own content and in some tiny little form or fashion contribute to a massive, because I'm literally a drop in the ocean that is wrestling podcasts and wrestling entertainment and the internet in general. But I can wake up every day and know that I've made something or created something or dropped another YouTube or done an interview, and I know that so many wrestlers will listen to our podcast and will enjoy it, and I love that. I love that vibe. So when somebody like Facebook says, we're going to take your page down because a couple of the videos on there belong to somebody else, even though those videos are clearly accredited to them and clearly will find their way to them, I just think, fuck you. That's a big problem, and that's why I get on my high horse and people think, oh God, he's off and running again with his tinfoil hat on. No, it's because I don't like the idea of living in a world where I'm not allowed to I'm not allowed the freedom to creatively express myself. That's a horrible world. Who wants to live in a world where they can't do whatever they want creatively? It's fucking terrifying.
Right.